I truly believe that we as a society would benefit if people would just allow themselves to do the things that they're good at and that they love and that they enjoy, and not try so hard to prove something to someone. It's our curse that we constantly feel that we need to do more, we need to put more effort, we need to put more work, we need to achieve more in order for us to be lovable and accepted and to be respected.
Hey friends, welcome to the Good Life Podcast, a show for women in midlife who want to live happier, healthier, and more meaningful lives. I'm Michelle Lamoureux, self-love and podcast coach, as well as the author of Design a Life You Love. And together, we're going to be doing just that. Each week, I bring on world-class experts, authors, entrepreneurs, and also do solo casts with the intention of giving you the time and space to think about what you really desire in your life. I'm so glad that you're here. Hey friends, it's Michelle Lamoureux and welcome back to the Good Life Podcast. Today you're in for a treat. We're going to talk about how to get connected to your authentic self and to truly love yourself with Kristina Mänd-Lakhiani, who's the co-founder of Mindvalley, the world's most powerful life transformation platform with an ever-growing 20 million strong following. She's an entrepreneur, writer, international speaker, artist, and philanthropist based in Estonia, and the author of Live by Your Own Rules and 7 Days to Happiness online programs, as well as her most recent book, Becoming Flawesome, The Key to Living an Imperfectly Authentic Life. Thank you, Kristina, for being here. I'm so thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me and for giving me this opportunity.
Well, I'm thrilled you're here. And we're going to get into what it means to be flawesome. I know that that's a word you said you didn't invent, but you've defined it in your own way. And I'm excited to hear what that is. But Mindvalley, that's a huge platform. Can you just take us into your story? I know that you've had an interesting childhood and background and you've traveled. And I'd love for me and my audience to get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, yes, when you read out Mindvalley and you give it such a glowing explanation, I was feeling so pleased. Yeah, we are one of the world's biggest platforms for personal growth and education, probably the biggest platform working with the world's leading authors in our industry. But I personally ended up in Mindvalley by accident.
Okay.
Unintentionally, because as you mentioned, I have a bizarre background. I was born in Soviet Union and raised in Soviet Union. So it was the country where personal growth wasn't a thing. We were incredibly pragmatic, incredibly, society's goals were more important than individuals. So, of course, when Soviet Union collapsed and I ended up in this free world, rediscovering everything, I got married to Vishen. Vishen is the famous face of Mindvalley. So when we got married, I actually moved to New York, and having no proper visa, I think the best thing I could do was to help Vishen with his passion project, because he had a day job and Mindvalley was his passion project. So reluctantly and by accident, I started helping him with Mindvalley without realizing that this will end up being my life journey as well. My personal idea of what my life was going to be like was very, very different, very far from that. I studied to be a diplomat because that was, well, I'll explain why.
Yes.
Soviet Union, we were not allowed to travel. And I believed as a child that was the only way for me to see the world. Of course, I was curious.
Wow.
So that's why I started studying politics and international politics. I made a career in Estonian politics. But then, sometimes life takes us in unexpected journeys, and then we find out that that's where we were supposed to be. And that's what happened with me and Mindvalley. I ended up where I was supposed to end up, but I didn't know when it was happening.
Right, of course. Well, that's such an incredible story. And it's interesting because in the book, you talked about how you loved physics and math as well. So let me actually ask you this question. I was going to ask a little bit later, but you talked about in the story that you got the golden medal from the president of Estonia for your academic excellence, but your teacher was telling your mom, oh, she's a great student, but she could do better in her Russian studies. So tell us how Because it sounds like you know yourself well, but there were all these sort of layers, and obviously where you grew up too, that sort of clouded it. And that happens to so many of us, where we get disconnected from ourselves in some way. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, so you tell us about that experience.
The disconnected happened probably a little bit later, but I guess it's a good thing that I got that medal because I'm a huge advocate for not working hard. And I know that that sounds probably horrible in the contemporary society, which is actually obsessed with, with productivity and hustling. And I'm that person who comes and says, "But guys, we're wrong." So I guess for me, it was necessary to have those medals because I know what it means to work hard. I am a perfectionist. I've been a perfectionist all my life. I was born in Soviet Union, a very non-individualistic society. So you bring yourself as a martyr to the altar of whatever society needs. I'm the only child of my parents, which means actually not that I'm spoiled, but it means that I had no sibling to do it right. All my parents' hopes were on me. So,
no pressure.
Yes. So that idea that I had to be good was on steroids, if it's possible.
Yes.
Now, we said gold medal from the president just to simplify the story because nobody wants to read too complicated stories. But actually, so in Soviet Union, they had the system of medals. To get a gold medal, you had to get only excellent marks for 3 years in school, the last 3 years. I actually almost lost my gold medal because I left out 2 commas out of my final essay, which took 6 hours to write.
No.
I almost lost it.
For 2 commas?
Yes. You had to be perfect for 3 years. And that's why I bring Russian language, because I studied in Russian system, because I didn't know all the commas, and occasionally I made mistakes, and that was the weakest. Actually, my weakest was sports, which is another ironic story. And I got a medal from the president of Estonia, because believe it or not, but our school had 4 people who had golden medal. 4. Wow. So I was picked out of those people to go and get the medal from the president as the best student.
Oh, so you represented your school? You represented the 4 winners too? Yes.
So if I was the best, I was actually doubly the best. So why I'm saying it's important is because it's such a trap of contemporary society. We are so enamored with that. And what does it change? All it changed is that I didn't bother to redo one of the exams to get cum laude in university. And then to get another cum laude in my master's degrees, I only had 1 mark off, and I couldn't bother anymore because I realized it didn't make any sense.
Wow. But you said it was good that you won the award. What did it do for you?
It wasn't a result. I made my career in Estonia, post-Soviet Estonia. And when I moved to New York, I couldn't find a job. I didn't have a proper visa. Nobody understood which university I graduated from. And I remember one interview where I was interviewing for a job, and the guy asked, "So how is your English?" I'm like, "But I'm speaking English with people. Don't you judge my English?" Like, I don't know how is my English. It's my 3rd language, so forgive me for my bizarre accent. So I didn't really milk the medals much, because it's school. I mean, it's school, it's university life. When life happens, all of that just remains as this blissful past and childhood. But why it's important is that I really believe that we as a society are idealizing the wrong thing. And if I didn't have these accomplishments, people would say, "Yeah, but you just..." And, with all those golden medals and with all that work, I don't feel so ashamed to say that my nature is actually very laissez-faire and lazy. I like to take it slow. And, you sometimes need to prove that you can do it the other way for people to even hear you.
It's beautiful. I got goosebumps from that. I feel that. That's beautiful. Flawesome. What does that mean? And how does one become flawesome? Tell us about what inspired this book. It's a cool word.
I'll give you like an ironic background for this word. So when I started writing the book, I'm a writer, so writing for me is a form of self-expression. So when I sat down to write the book, I knew approximately where I was going. It's like, you get out of the house and you say, "I'll go and walk in the forest." You don't know where you're going exactly. It's the forest. So when I started writing the book, I knew that I wanted to write a book about being yourself. people call me authentic, so I had to write around that. So it was a book on authenticity, in fact.
Yes.
And I had a whole page of working titles for the book. It was literally, I did my own brainstorm with my page sheet of paper. So I had the sheet of paper with the working titles, and Flawesome was nowhere there. So I finished the book. And I don't remember what its title was, or maybe I don't want to remember anymore. And then somewhere on the internet, I came across this word, and the word found the book. So
Wow.
I found this word, and it just made so much sense. And I said, of course, it's Becoming Flawesome. And
Amazing.
that was when I knew that's the name, that's the title. I don't need brainstorming. It just clicked into place. So that's how it happened. Now, the funny thing is that I wrote the book to be self-published, and then the word came, and then I gave it a title, and then I started working with my publisher, and it went through other rounds of editing. And thanks to those other rounds of editing, the word Flawesome actually permeated from the cover into the book itself, because there was no word Flawesome in the book.
Oh, how funny. Okay, because it was about authenticity. Oh, I love that. That's great. Okay, so then it made its way in, but it's a cool word. And it's so what does it mean to you?
So for me, Flawesome means recognizing your imperfection and realizing that this is exactly what makes you beautiful. That's what it is for me.
And don't we all want to embrace what makes us beautiful from being imperfectly perfect, right? I mean, this idea that we have to, keep striving and achieving the next level of success. I mean, even in the book, you write that there's that part of you that knows that, like, you want, like, this idea that it has to make some list, right? Or some ranking. Yeah. There's always these expectations, you put it out, and it's always the next level of, like, where are you going to take it? What accolades can you show for the effort versus just the flow of the work and the intentionality behind what you've created in order to serve others. Really, that's what I took from. I mean, there's so much beauty. There's so much you cover in the book.
Thank you. First of all, a huge thank you for having read it, because I mean, from your comments, I know you have, and that's such a pleasure for any writer, because the book really, I keep saying that the book becomes a book when it finds a reader, it's quite a journey to recognize the imperfections, and I think the beauty of it is that it actually gives you so much energy back.
Yeah,
it's like letting go and allowing this warm, comfortable embrace, realizing that you really don't have to try so hard to be something else. And if we started in a pragmatic way, so I'll keep that line, but that energy that you release, because when you try so hard, you do put energy into that. Everything takes energy. That energy that gets released from just stopping to be something else, from faking it, you can channel into things that matter, that truly matter. And I truly believe that we as a society would benefit if people would just allow themselves to do the things that they're good at and that they love and that they enjoy, and not try so hard to prove something to someone. It's our curse that we constantly feel that we need to do more, we need to put more effort, we need to put more work, we need to achieve more in order for us to be lovable and accepted and to be respected. And I buy into that as well. You know, I was just having an interview recently, and I was sharing how I have this sacred time from 7 to 9 when I spend time with my children. And even now, I feel guilty saying that, no, I'm not going to have an interview between 7 to 9, not because I have another meeting or because I prioritize my children. It's like, I've written a book about being yourself, and still I feel guilty, and I feel like I'm not professional enough. Don't I want enough success for my book if I can't give away everything for that?
Wow, this is resonating so deeply for me, truly. And it's interesting, you're not the only guest who's been grateful that I've read the book. It always I don't understand that you could be showing up and somebody hasn't taken the time, and maybe because I wrote a book too. It's like when you put all that heart and work into it, and I think for the richness of the interview, it does the service to the guest to have we're on the same page now because I've literally read the pages. So I think that makes a difference. And I want that for my audience. And I also have to acknowledge you when Kristina's talking about 7 to 9, she's talking PM. Right now, I'm going to look at my clock. It's 12:48 in the afternoon here. And what time is it there?
It's 10:48.
48 PM, ladies. She's doing her, and she logged in at 10:30 at night for this interview. So super grateful. Absolutely. And a couple things which we can touch upon that when you were talking about the striving and is the imposter syndrome. And I actually just did a solo cast on this because I had hit a ranking with my podcast, and it made me happy and uncomfortable at the same time, where I hit number 13 in the United States in the how-to category.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even realize thank you, but I don't know that it stayed there, but it hit there. And then I was like, oh, and then all this weird self-doubt came in. I'm like, am I doing enough? And so can you speak to this? Because you also interview a lot of the greatest minds, and, a lot of people will be surprised to know that very successful people struggle with imposter syndrome. What's driving that, and how do you navigate that?
Well, first of all, I want to say that number 13 is a lucky number. I know it's counterintuitive, but I've lived in Asia.
I've always thought that.
I've lived in Asia for a long time, and in Asia, East Asia, 4 is the bad number. So in our elevators, we had the floor 13 and 13A. So since then, 13 is the lucky number.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, I'll take that.
But jokes aside, I think my physics teacher, and he was like a hardcore Soviet physics teacher, he said it the best. He said that knowledge is like an island in the ocean of ignorance. And the more you know, the bigger your island, and the bigger your island, the longer the coastline, the more, connection, or the touch point with the ocean of ignorance that you have. So the more you know, the more you realize how little you really know. Because of that, it's literally like this, and I think that's why people who actually are worthy of their achievements, they very often feel that there's so much I do not know. Now, if they were maybe to compare themselves to other people in the industry, maybe they wouldn't feel so bad. But they usually the people who are very, and I don't have research behind that, so I'm basing it on my own feelings, but usually the people who are ambitious, they do have a very high bar for themselves, regardless of the environment.
Yeah.
For them, it's important to succeed, not just to win the race, but to actually, beat your own record, and that's part of it. Now, why there is such a problem with imposter syndrome? Also, I think part of the problem is this paradigm in which we live, the idea of that success has to be achieved with hard work, sweat, blood, tears, and sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that's a really dangerous paradigm, because if you achieve success without having sacrificed your health, your social connections, your family, you of course, if you equate success to sacrifices, somewhere subconsciously, you're going to have this doubt. But is it really success? Is it going to be sustainable? Did I earn it? Am I not supposed to suffer more? It's like, a comparison would be, and it was in the book, that comparison that I made, that when you go to the gym, you add weights to your machinery because you need your muscles to burn, because if they don't burn, you feel that you've wasted time. With success, it's the same thing, only rather than weights, we add hard work. Yes. And because we live in that paradigm that idealizes sacrifices and going through as many hardships as possible to achieve success, that's why it's really so hard to acknowledge your success if it hasn't taken everything out of you. But yet, if you do something that you love, you might not suffer. Yeah. If you do something that you're really good at, it might not require 24/7.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's natural. It's natural that we doubt, but I really think that our society doesn't give enough examples of other ways of reaching success. And since we've touched on that topic, I actually didn't know we'd be going there. I'll share. Do you remember I said that I had two bad subjects? One of them was language, and another one, and I became a writer. How awesome was that? And another one was sports.
Yeah.
So I wasn't good at sports. But when I was 4 years old,
Yes.
so Soviet Union was known for Olympic champions.
Yes.
It had loads of Olympic champions because there was such a system which was called Olympic reserves. So they plucked up the kids from all over the country at the age of 4. Because in Soviet Union there was this thing, if you do anything after 4, it's too late. It's ridiculous. So they picked kids at 4 and they actually trained them into Olympians.
Wow.
From that age. So when I was in kindergarten, they came and they picked me up for gymnastics. And I remember this is one of my earliest memories. I realized today that my earliest memory is a dog biting off my ear. I actually have both now. But that's another one. That's one of my earliest memories because probably it's a traumatic memory. They brought me to this training and they put me in a split and I was crying. It was so physically painful that when I came home, I told my mom, never take me there again. And she, thank God, she listened to me. She didn't take me there. And that ruined my relationship with sports forever. Whereas I was picked for Olympic reserves because I obviously had what it took to be an Olympian. Although people who maybe are of a different school will say, I didn't have what it took to be an Olympian because I dropped off so early. But I actually did, because in the next year, they came and they picked me up for Olympic reserves for figure skating.
Oh, wow.
But my mom didn't take me there. So now, why I'm telling this story, because it's a really short story. I had a training. It was painful. I refused to go ever again. And then sports was my weakest subject. I was a waste material of the system, which idealizes sacrifices and breaking people for success.
Yeah.
But I was lucky. Because I was wasted after the first training. I didn't have my childhood broken.
Yes.
I didn't have my hopes broken. I didn't go to the Olympic Games only to lose and to feel myself like a loser for the rest of my life. We live in a paradigm which idealizes the only way we understand success is sacrifice and breaking. But that system creates so much waste material we never talk about. Never.
It's so true. It's so true. So do you know the poet Khalil Gibran? He wrote The Prophet, and he talks about, go ahead.
I borrowed that book from my son.
Oh, you did? It's one of my absolute favorites. And in it, he says, work is love made visible. And those words are just so resonant to me. But we are in different cultures where like this idea of success it's not allowed to be personally defined. And that's actually a lot of when I interviewed the entrepreneurs, this is about creating success on your own terms. Right. And that you do get to take ownership back of that. But we do live in a hustle culture. I really hate the word hustle. I see that that's not that's not how you vibe. And I even did like a solo cast a couple of years ago on like embracing the feminine energy, which is more about flow. And you wrote about this. Talk more about flow state and how does one balance their desire to achieve, but not with that hustle mentality, like how, because like you said, so much of this has been ingrained in us is that this is the only path.
It's it's like a religion in a way. And if I say that this is not the only way, a lot of people will, even if they are willing to listen to me, it just doesn't click, because another way would be, achievement through encouragement rather than from punishment.
Wow.
Now, a very simple analogy would be the red marker and the green marker technique. So say my final essay, the one which almost ruined my prospects for golden medal, you write an essay and the teacher picks up the red marker and points out everything which went wrong. This is the red marker technique. You're constantly shown what's wrong with you, where you're bad. Now, the green marker technique is the teacher takes the same essay and rather than focusing on things where you went wrong, the teacher points out everywhere where you were brilliant. And your homework is not to correct the mistakes, but to actually take the things where you were brilliant and run with them and go deeper. Now, you've read that story. Imagine if my teacher said to my parents, not that Kristina is good, but she's bad with that, but they said, Kristina is good, and this is where she's really good. Why don't you see how she could spend more time doing astronomy, physics, mathematics, the things that I truly enjoyed? Now, it's a possible scenario, and there are a lot of people who achieve success through that, but it's not a very good, movie script. or
Yes.
it's not super good for books. So that's why in pop culture, we don't see examples of that. And that's why, our beliefs are viruses which feed on evidence. The only evidence we see is of the other paradigm, that success is achievable through punishment.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of evidence of success being achievable through love, through encouragement. And because we don't see that, so we don't consider it even possible. And when we stumble upon that, then we don't believe in our own success. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So I think there is another paradigm, the success through encouragement. And I don't have statistics. Maybe I should look into that. I believe it creates as much success, world-class success, but it doesn't create waste material in the take. Zero waste material.
What have you seen culturally? So, you've lived in, well, when it was Russia, and then Estonia and Malaysia and New York, like you've traveled so many places, you speak multiple languages, just it doesn't have to be research based. Like, this is your experience. What did you witness in terms of this whole cultural impact on our ability to be authentic and to achieve success in a way that is true to us versus all these external norms, that are imposed? Like, did you see many cultural differences, or do you see that it's each culture has their own way of manipulating the person into like striving for perfection?
Well, my passion for research and statistics and proof is part of my Soviet upbringing. I like to verify things. Soviet Union was very inexplicable environment to be in. I think the closest we get to that would be probably North Korea, which nobody knows anything about. And it had its own expectations. They were not so much based maybe on the idea of, you being successful or not. It was more survival based, in the sense that for example, very simple example, you couldn't do business because that was illegal and you would end up in jail. So few people who took risk to swindle things to earn extra money were in great danger. So any kind of self-expression wasn't really encouraged. So it was such a different parallel universe that I wouldn't actually compare the system or the effect of the system on the people to the world in which most of us live right now.
Yes.
Having lived in Malaysia for 16 years, of course, it's a different environment, but it's in essence capitalistic, and because of that, and it has some traces of democracy. So because of that, I'm sorry for everybody who's listening to me from Asia. I believe I'm a child of Asia. I deserve to have real relationship with that region, but it is much more comparable to let's say US or Europe. I have lived in 6 countries. I was born in Belarus. You can call everything the Soviet Union. I've lived in Estonia. I've lived in Norway. I've lived in Scotland. That's where I studied. US in New York and Asia. One thing I can say: all people are in the core just people. We're so similar. We have different circumstances, we have different decorations. And if we talk about certain issues like, let's say, women rights or opportunities or human rights, of course, circumstances are different. But and I know Soviet Union is inexplicable, but we also had love, we also had happiness, we also had connection. It was life. It was just different, but in essence, we were the same.
Yeah. What about New York, though? When you went to New York, what was that energy like in terms of what you were used to? What did you take in from that experience?
I'm the New York type of person.
Okay, why? Why is that?
I enjoy New York. It's the most maybe it had more to do with my age. I have no idea, but it's the most inexplicable thing because when I came to New York, I had left my very successful career in Estonia.
Yeah.
I was a nobody. I still had to adjust to the way people spoke there. It was a little too fast for me. I did have difficulties sometimes understanding. Also, I've been brought up on British version of English. So I was rather lonely, but I never felt lonely. I think what I loved about New York, and I had some traces of being aware of what's going on at that time, it wasn't just the journey. I think what I loved, what I consciously loved, was the energy, the fact that people just kept moving. It was so optimistic, and this is something which was very very attractive. Just to see, when you're depressed and sad, you go out on the street, you see people moving, and yes, maybe some people see that they're stressed, that they're overworked. What I saw was that they had energy and they had passion, they had desire to do something. And yes, I don't understand until now biologically what it means 24/7 and how on earth can you work 24/7. It doesn't make sense to me. But they say the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I know people who hate New York and who see things which I don't see. So I think it depends on with which intention you come. Mm. You can choose, you can change your mind on the spot. You can just decide. And for me, I think I was so excited. I was so proud of myself. It was such a proud thing to say I'm a New Yorker. So I enjoyed it thoroughly, despite being completely lonely, lost, without a career, and having to rediscover myself from zero. And also, they're incredibly friendly, to the point of strangely friendly. But you will never go a day without talking a word with someone.
So true. I actually love New York, and I love the energy of it too. And it's funny that you say it's friendly, because I think there's probably people who live in the States who think the opposite. They think they're completely rude. And, I remember visiting with a friend who had moved there from college, and we got out of a cab and all you heard was somebody using the F-bomb, like swearing at somebody. And she looked at me, she said, "Welcome to New York." It just had that kind of like over the top, but fun.
I will write it off to reticular activating system. And since you've read my book, you know what I'm talking about. There's this one experiment that I ask people to do. Your brain actually, because we have so much stimuli in our environment, your brain has to filter it out. So in a way, we give it a command what to filter out. So in simple words, your goal defines your perception. So the exercise that I do in the book is that I ask people to look around in their environment and notice everything which is pink, for example. And and I do not know how many pink objects are in people's lives, but maybe there is some detail. So if people who are listening right now look around, notice everything which is pink, just take a note of that. And then I'll ask you guys to close your eyes. Honestly, close your eyes and remember everything which was blue.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And if you are in a familiar environment, you'll remember something. But when you look around right now, you'll notice things that you didn't remember, because your brain, that's how our brain works. And of course, I'm simplifying. Reticular activating system is more than that. But what happens is that you notice what you give command your brain to notice. Your goal defines your perception. So if you're going to a place like New York, and that's your expectation that everybody is going to be rude, that's what you will notice. If your expectations is something else, and I know it sounds so woo, but that's how our brain works, literally. But if your expectation is that, they're stressed over work, but they're in essence friendly, you will suddenly start noticing that those people that you thought were rude are actually just hurt. They're not rude. It's their pain speaking. But then next to them, there's a person who's incredibly friendly, and you maybe wouldn't have noticed that person if you wanted to notice the people who are rude. And I know I'm talking from experience, because when I moved to Asia, I hated it there.
Yes.
I hated it for years until I made a decision that if this is my home, isn't it smarter to learn to love it? And everything changed like this from one decision.
It's beautiful. That was one of my favorite messages in the book, actually. That part when you talked about, you're like, I just like overnight, like that was it. The shift was made. You chose to love what you saw, and you loved being there. And we can do that with anything in our lives, couldn't we? I mean, it's not even just about where you live, right?
It takes a little bit of practice, because, there's also this programming. And, in psychology, they have this idea that if let's say, if a problem took you 5 years to get to that point, it will take you at least half of that time to get out of that.
Yes.
So because there, yes, our brains are there's neuroplasticity, but there are also the neural pathways which are there for a reason. So the habits are there. So the moment when you bring the awareness into the process, you have a chance to change the habits. So when it comes to beliefs, the problem that a lot of us do, let's take hard work. Success requires sacrifice and hard work.
Yes.
And if I see this is I'm sorry, English is my third language, so I hope you forgive me. If I say it's bullshit,
oh, you can say
beep it out.
No, you can say that. I don't even think they consider that a swear on.
Our natural thing is that turn 180 degrees and say like, no, but it's not easy. And it's not like you don't need to sacrifice anything. No, but that's not what I'm saying. The belief which will work is probably not going to be a heel turn belief. It might be just 1% adjustment.
Love that.
Yes, success does require work, but it requires the work that you love to do.
Yeah.
That you're naturally good at.
Yeah. Is that what it is? Is that how you approach your own work? And when you like empower others, like just to be in the alignment of what truly brings you joy, kind of like what we talked about with Khalil Gibran, talking about work is love made visible. It's not to toil in something that that you despise just for a paycheck or accolades because you're good at, right? You have you're getting the external validation. So can you speak more to that? Because I think it's hard because you also have to be able to make a living. And sometimes there's things that you're good at that don't actually pay the bills. I always think about how do you reconcile that? I'd love your thoughts.
That's because of the paradigm in which we live. We think there is no other scenario. That's the thing. And do you remember what I said? Your beliefs are viruses which feed on evidence. Your brain picks out what you
right. It's the pink versus the blue. Yeah.
Pink versus the blue. So of course, it's really hard to shift. Now, I will misapply this principle a little bit because in its origin, it was it was invented for another reason. Pareto principle.
Yeah.
And I know in work it's not quite the same. The percentage might be actually different. Classical Pareto principle says that 20% of your activities create 80% of your results.
Yes.
Well, I think that the actual percentage is 1585 in reality. But I will leave it at that because there's very, very little research. I mean, if you want, you can research the theory of flow. It does have, in broad terms, similar idea that if you get into flow, you can create within, let's say, 1 day out of 5, you will create whatever you would create in a week.
Wow.
It's based on the same principle.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, you could research the theory of flow. But the thing is that, and it is true about everyone. It is really true. Actually, people who coach businesses or who consult businesses, they know that. They know that. That's why optimization is possible. You cut off the things which don't produce the results because 85% produce the 15% of the result. Now, the problem is that because we believe that success requires hustle, hard work, and sacrifice, we fill the rest of the space with busy work.
True.
If we don't, we will feel like an imposter.
It's so true because we need that sense of like feeling the immediate satisfaction of checking things off.
And if you don't know what to do, one thing we know very well, it's hard to serve. It's hard to let go. It's hard to trust your genius. But it's so much more tangible and understandable to put more work, to put more hours. I don't know how to create a piece of genius in 15 minutes, but I do know how to spend a whole day trying.
So true. This is so beautiful. I love this so much. Okay, well, let's talk about self-love because we're both believers in self-love. And I also believe, right, self-love is the foundation, self-care of like, oh, go get the massage. I do buy myself flowers every week. But talk about self-love. I'd love to get your viewpoint on it. I know you do like a little mini course on that too on your website. So I'd love to hear.
You know what? I after we published the book, I suddenly realized that it's about self-love in essence. I know it's called Becoming Flawesome. That was not the title I gave it from the start. It was about being authentic. But the more I talk about that, the more I realize that in essence it's about self-love because it is the epidemic that we have in contemporary society. We don't love ourselves. We feel that we're not lovable enough, and so we go into all those extremes to prove to ourselves that we are lovable. And I know it might sound a little bit counterintuitive because you would say go on social media and all you see is people being self-obsessed and showing off. But that's not out of self-love. That's out of the lack of self-love.
That's right.
Because you can't give yourself that love and admiration. You expect the whole world to give you the likes, to give you the comments, to give you the approval. And then, oh, so you approve me, then maybe I'm okay to approve myself. Again, we could go deeper into how this whole negotiation for love actually was programmed into us. As a perfectionist, I know how it is. You have to earn the love. You have to do the right thing.
Yes.
Then the love will be given to you. So it's partially because of that, but we as a society, we do suffer from the lack of self-love. And I've been very puzzled by that, because I'm an obstinate person, and you probably know that. When I started publishing the book, my marketer said, self-love is not really that marketable. And I was like, really? So I had to answer that question, why? And I came to a conclusion that there are two, in broad terms, three reasons, actually three. So reason number one is we think it's unimportant. So as an entrepreneur, the logic is very simple. I have business to run, economy is down, my clients can't pay, my employees are leaving, I have serious problems to take care of. I don't have time for that nonsense. Yeah. It's fluffy, it's unimportant. Right. Fluffy, or let's say, my teenage kids don't listen to me. They have problems in school. I have more serious problems than this nonsense. We call self-love a soft skill. Yet, surprisingly, so statistics says that 85% of adults have low self-esteem.
Wow, that's high. 85%.
85%. Wow. Self-esteem is not self-love, but it's very often a symptom of the lack of self-love. Yeah. So with these numbers, we call self-love a soft skill. My question is why? Is it because it's unimportant? Is it because it's too easy? It's definitely not too easy, because people suffer. They don't know what it is. And a very interesting idea, which, as I was thinking, that I came up with is this, that, you think that you have problems in business, in family, and your personal problems are important because of that. But in reality, you have personal problems which project onto your business and onto your family. Mm-hmm. And when we understand that connection, that it goes in the wrong way, then we'll stop deprioritizing self-love.
It's true.
Because you have a problem with anything. Because first of all, you have a problem with yourself. Once you sort that out, like, how when you're happy, nothing is really a problem. Yeah. And again, returning to Habecker, I think I mentioned him already. He says it beautifully. You think there is a big problem, but in reality, there are no big problems. There's just little you. Oh, wow. You grow, problems become smaller. So self-love is the primary concern. Once you sort this out, a lot of problems will either become small or disappear. Now, the other reason why people struggle with self-love is we don't understand what it is. There's no definition.
There you go.
We don't understand what we consider self-obsession as self-love, or selfishness as self-love. These are the opposites of self-love. We don't know how it feels, what that relationship is about. And the third problem, is perfectionism. Our obsession with perfectionism is the source of the dark side. And we're coming back to that same negotiation for love. I'm only willing to love myself when I'm perfect. And if I'm not that perfect version of myself, I'm going to punish myself by removing my self-love. And because of that, we don't know how to deal with those dragons. I call them dragons. I hope you follow me. We don't know how to deal with those dragons, so we push them away, and that's how the dark side arises.
Yeah, because what you resist persists. It's not gonna just magically go away too. And with the self-love, it's just interesting. I know for me, like for the last 10 years, Kristina, when I've journaled, I say to God, what do I need to know? Love yourself. Every single time. Always, every journaling session starts the same. Love yourself. And I wrote a whole book on loving yourself.
Can you show it again?
Yeah. I spilled my tea on it before we started.
Wait. I'll take a screenshot.
I'll send you a copy. I'll mail you a copy to Estonia. Can I do that? It's on my website. I actually give the book away for free now, but it kind of channeled through me but it's all because I was like, oh my gosh, this is all just like loving life lessons and stuff. But it's so funny because even though I know and I teach about it and I talk about it, I feel like we're still in a dance. Do you ever feel like, I was curious about this because, the whole work, because I think authenticity and self-love, they do go hand in hand, because if you're being 100%, like you said, not 95%, 100% authentic to yourself, then you are showing up as your truest nature, your truest form, and expressing through that truest form, which I think inherently that is self-love. You're not making yourself small to make somebody else comfortable. You're right. You're not doing the things performatively to make others happy. But do you feel like you've arrived, or do you still feel like you're evolving? Because I'm 52 and I'm still in a dance with it. Do we arrive? I'm just curious, because you said at 40 you had this awareness, and I'm like, oh gosh, she's way ahead of me. I mean, it's taken a long time. So and I wrote this book 10 years ago almost. Yeah.
I'm a little younger than you, 45. And imagine, no, I would not like to imagine that I was the best version of myself. What would I do for the rest of my life?
Right. Be boring, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't that be? No, it would be
so
scary.
Boring.
It would be scary.
Why? Why scary?
I'll tell you why, because I'm a gamer. I like to play games. And my favorite type of games is civilization. And I have noticed that a long time ago. If you build that beautiful civilization, you've fortified it, at some point it just becomes so boring that you invade a tornado or a famine or something, because we humans are bored.
That's interesting. Yes. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, but that's a joking answer. A more serious answer, it would be, we take shower every day, or if not every day, we brush teeth every day, we wash face every day. Life happens all the time. And that's a huge mistake a lot of people do when they come to personal growth. They think it's like, it's like with profession. You do your education, you get your medical degree, and then you're a doctor, and then you're a doctor for the rest of the life. It doesn't work like that in personal growth. You think that you'll go through all the programs, you'll get your diploma, and now I'm good at life. I'm the master of life. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Life is a dance. There is no size fits all.
Yes.
What works for you today will be completely irrelevant 5 years from now, maybe even tomorrow. So it is a dance. And because of that, it's like, if you've done ballroom dancing, of course you've drilled the steps. Of course you understand the beat and the rhythm, and you maybe know your partner. But every dance is a living creature. And it happens. As you make the steps, it happens. And so the same with life and love and everything. And life is going to be sometimes painful. And things are going to happen. My projects are going to fail. The people that I love are going to leave. And I'm going to get hurt. And in the moments when I get hurt, I will need my self-love again. So it's like training the muscle. Just because you have big, buff muscles doesn't mean you don't go to the gym again. Yeah. So no, thank God, I am still a work in progress and forever. Hopefully.
That's so beautiful. I think that's so great. Well, okay. Anything I didn't ask you today, we've covered a lot, and I know it's late there. So just anything that you want to leave the women listening with today that we didn't touch upon?
I usually just go by intuition, because there's
yes, go for whatever popped into your head. It sounds beautiful to me.
What popped in my head is this really simple practice, especially in relationship to yourself, because we were talking about self-love. Replace judgment with curiosity. So, for example, you do something and you say oh, here I do again. Why do I do that? Then rather than, because that sounds like with judgment, what's wrong with me? Replace it with curiosity. Oh, I wonder, what does it mean? What does it say about me? How would I like it to be? So if you replace judgment with curiosity, it's going to really help you mend your relationship with yourself.
So beautiful. Okay. So I'm going to direct people to where to connect with you, but I'm going to just show the book again. So it's Becoming Flawesome. And then the subtitle is The Key to Living an Imperfectly Authentic Life by Kristina Mänd-Lakhiani. It's a beautiful book, and there's exercises throughout the whole thing.
I haven't seen it yet.
You're kidding. I got a copy before you did?
Because I live in Europe. It takes much longer.
Well, I was away last week, and I just picked this up when I came back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to read it on yesterday. So it's beautiful. Oh, you haven't held it in your hands yet?
I have it on my iPad.
No, it's not the same because you got to earmark it. And I don't know. I love to feel a book. I'm old school. I like to feel the book. Oh, well, congratulations. There's your beautiful cover. I didn't realize you didn't have a copy yet. Well, I'm honored that I got sent one. Where can women that are listening today want to connect with you, get the book? Where should I direct them? Where do you like to connect the most?
So in June, it's going to be available in all the bookshops in US, and in July, it will be in the airports. But I think the best way to get it is from Mindvalley's website. It's mindvalley.com/books/flawesome. Because I, of course, it's such a big endeavor. I've created a course to go with it. It's on self-love, and all the bonuses, all the goodies are going to be in the package there. So that's where I suggest you get your book.
I love it. And where do you like to connect? Do you like Instagram? Where social media?
I'm socially omnipresent, like anybody nowadays. It's Kristina Mänd everywhere, except Twitter, which is a bizarre place. So Kristina Mänd, Kristina is with a K. It's the Estonian way of writing it.
Oh, it's so pretty. Well, all the show notes for today will be over at thegoodlifecoach.com with all the resources mentioned and links to Kristina's book, so you can pick up a copy or connect with her on social. I've loved this conversation. You're a beautiful soul, beautiful book. So fun to hear your perspective. And thank you for sharing today. Really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely my pleasure. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope you gained some new information or inspiration for your life. That is the essence of this show, is to really wake up to what's possible for you, to reclaim your beautiful voice, and to really learn to love and prioritize yourself. So if you gained any value from any of the conversations you've tuned into, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. You can do that right now on your phone. And please do consider leaving a rating and review if you have yet to do so on Apple Podcasts. It's actually how more women can find the show. And I really want to grow a community of women who are loving themselves and living full on. So thank you as always for tuning in. And I look forward to reconnecting with you next Wednesday. Bye for now.